My Hero Academia has fights. As a part of the shonen battle category, it is no wonder that Hero Aka revels in combat and action, with most of its narrative climaxes being punctuated by explosive conflict. With such a wide selection of scuffles to choose from, one naturally finds oneself asking, what is the best fight in My Hero Academia? Well, that is why we're here. But what if you're tired of just watching these cool fights? What if you actually want to throw hands with magic teenagers? Unfortunately, that is illegal. But luckily, I've got you covered with the help of Core, today's sponsor. Core is a new Unreal Engine powered online platform dedicated to game development by gamers for gamers. Anyone can sign up and either play a gazillion, number not accurate, already made games, or make their own with the user-friendly tool the site provides for completely free. It's an awesome platform with a lot of interactive elements that really makes it fun to use. For us anime fans, the site already hosts fan games of stuff like Attack on Titan, JoJo, and of course, My Hero Academia. I started this one, was born with the Hellflame quirk, punched a tree for 30 minutes, and then I nuked the city. It was fun. The imagination is the limit, and plenty of users have already used their imagination to create not just games, but a fun and welcoming community that is just so pleasant to traverse. The platform is full of weird and creative ideas, so if it sounds like something you'd enjoy, make sure to click the link in the description and check out Core. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. To determine the best fight in Hero Aka, we first need to understand what best even means in this context. As great as it would be to have an objective measure for quality, the reality simply is that depending on what you're examining, different characteristics are going to matter. Is it the most bombastic, the most emotional, the most technically impressive, etc, etc, etc? What I personally am looking for, however, is not any of that, but the most Hero Aka fight in Hero Aka. That is to say, a conflict that contains a vertical slice of everything that makes up the essence of the series. Any show can give me good animation and cool power-ups, but what does the quintessential MHA fight have to be and do to truly be emblematic of the entire work? I could go through these characteristics one by one, explaining them in abstract terms, and then conclude the video by revealing my pick for the best fight. This is the standard formula and the algorithm would like that, but fuck it, I just moved and I'm my own man, so we're doing it backwards. I will immediately reveal what the best fight is in my opinion, and by going through the concrete examples of its elements, we will sort of reverse engineer a concise idea of what makes Hero Aka, Hero Aka. Yeah, okay, so the best fight in My Hero Academia is Deku vs. Gentle. And look, I know a lot of you disagree with me on this one, but hear me out for a bit, alright? This is neither the most epic nor the most emotional fight in the series. Its anime adaptation is mediocre at best, and it happens in a pretty low stakes, low chill arc. However, it exhibits qualities that make it uniquely My Hero Academia, and that's what I love about it, and that's what I would like to discuss today. First off, let's talk about those low stakes. Stakes in drama and fiction essentially refers to the implication of consequence, the promise that if an event is allowed to happen, certain other events will follow. To many, this has sort of created a binary scale. High stakes, that is to say the promise of cataclysmic consequence, is good and grants a story tension, whereas low stakes with less grandiose results deprive the story of that tension and are therefore to be avoided. I really don't agree with this for a few reasons. If high stakes were the king's road to tension and drama, then movies like, for example, Parasite, where the stakes never go beyond the fates of a few individuals, could never be as tense as they clearly are. High stakes are just one way to create weight, and frankly, a pretty cheap one at that. Saying that the hero's failure will lead to the detonation of his planet or whatever is technically high stakes, But if that's all that's given, it fails to really cognitively engage with the weight it would bring, because we simply cannot understand such an abstract, huge thing. The promise of consequence and danger is, in fact, not just limited to the bodily realm, as death and destruction are not the only consequences worth of tension. A character's internal suffering, their progress, and their trauma can all be tied into creating high emotional stakes without the need for bombastic annihilation. In fact, I'd argue that this is much more effective. None of us can truly empathize with the loss of civilizations or the galaxies, but we can all, both intellectually and emotionally, understand what the loss of one's self-worth and the regression on one's own progress means and entails. These are natural parts of the human experience, after all. Most of us have not experienced our planet exploding. If you have, seek help. But most of us have experienced hardship, personal challenges, and those are the things that can create weight for us, the real people. So, emotional stakes, high or low, can absolutely pack quite a punch and is still a narrative with a human element. With that in mind, the fight between the gentle criminal and Deku becomes one that carries a lot of such weight, as both fight for small, personal causes. Gentle to both affirm his worth and validate his love to La Brava, and Deku to protect Eri's smile, the only thing she has left after a lifetime of torture and trauma. These things don't matter in a world of murder and disaster, but they are still worth protecting and fighting over. This element being so continuously present in this fight is emblematic of a core idea in MHA in general, that true salvation is not one of the body, but of the heart. The salvation and heroism Deku and Gentle wish to offer Eri and La Brava respectively is the same as the salvation Deku himself was offered by All Might, not to be saved physically, but to be emotionally saved from his own despair. Through this consistency, Hiroaka positions the emotional and mental well-being of its characters as equally as important as their physical one, which is a refreshing take on heroism and one that continues to define the series going forward. Moving on from the stakes, let's look at the actual combat on display here. Hiroaka has a reputation of not exactly excelling at combat choreography, a reputation that I actually agree with. Most fights are short, simple, and center around one or two major strategies, which as a setup can seem somewhat shallow at times, especially compared to the multi-tiered micro-tactics seen in some contemporary shows. However, I keep being endeared by the tactics that do make it out into the battles, as well as the small details around them. As a concrete example that's relevant to this video, let's look at Deku's maneuver in the air, when he uses his memory to identify where Gentle's air cushions are to then fire an Air Force blast angled such that it ricochets off them, hitting his adversary right on. It's a small moment, but one that is given some cool additional spice. For one, it reinforces that Deku is generally a really smart kid, someone who has a keen sense of space and strategy. But more importantly than that here is how he applies procedural knowledge. A key element to this move is that he keeps his body tension just right so that he can aim and shoot successfully while flying through the air. This is an application of what he learned from Mina during their breakdance training, and a vestigial microcosm of a core aspect of Deku's intersocial character. His ability to learn from others and make those lessons parts of himself. Be it Bakugo's flying, Ida's leg attacks, or Mina's breakdancing, Deku keeps learning from his peers and incorporating those aspects of them into himself permanently, something he started doing already from a very young age with his Hero Notebook. Even extreme examples like his Froppy style, which, yes, looks ridiculous, are still in line with this theme of taking inspirations from others and making it his own. This creates two narrative contrasts. One to the classic era of heroism, where singular pillars like All Might single-handedly defeated evildoers. Something that Deku proves to be inadequate, as the newer, more complex age of villainy requires more collaborative efforts, as also evidenced by the emergence of hero team-ups. And then another contrast is that to the evil primordial All for One himself. While he gains power by stealing quirks from others, taking ruthlessly, Deku gains power by learning from others, in his own way taking the powers for himself in a non-destructive way. So in essence, the small moments of Deku incorporating the skills of other people into his arsenal position him as both the opposition and the evolution of the old era of both heroism and villainy, which is a pretty cool execution of the learning from others trope shonen often includes. One more element we should look at is the thematic aspects of the fight. Hiroaka's combat scenes really aren't about the choreography or cool moves, as I said, and much more about how those classes reverberate through the world, the narrative, and in this case, the characters. His bout with Gentle represents a caesura, a cutting off point for Deku, as it forces upon him the realization that villainy isn't a monocausal phenomenon that springs forth only from evil itself. The plight of the gentle criminal is completely unaccommodable into the simplistic worldview that Deku had until this point. He isn't evil, he isn't all that dangerous, hell, his plan is really no big deal if you ignore the negative effect it would have on Eri, which is a single person. He is just someone living outside the law because of both personal and environmental failings, now seeking to prove his worth and to protect the love he found on the back streets of society. This is incredibly important because it challenges Deku to finally acknowledge the world he lives in. The theme of demonic villains is mostly over. Now come the disenfranchised, the unlucky, the downtrodden, those who slip through the cracks. And can a hero, a true hero, beat them down with the same grin? Or is there another solution? The introduction of questions like these makes Hiroaka fights incredibly engaging, and Gentle vs. Deku is a great example of that. Granted, the lessons Deku specifically learned from that fight haven't been evoked as consistently as I would have liked in future arcs, but nonetheless, if we just look at the fight as it is here, it makes it insanely compelling to me. That's 3 examples, right? And that's the magic number, isn't it? Bonus fact, Lover Mode is so fucking cool, at least in the manga, the anime butchered it, but taking the power of love and making it an actual power-up is so cheesy, but I love it. In conclusion, by looking at the elements that make Gentle vs. Deku as engaging as it is, we can distill that the core appeal of Hiroaka lies somewhere within its focus on themes, its elaboration on character motives in conjunction with the world, and in the snappy back and forth of those aspects. So yeah, that's why this fight is great. Don't disagree with me, I will cry. Thank you so much for watching, and of course a special thank you to all our patrons, including Christian Finkbeiner, Fiction Ape, Paradja, Victor Perez, Sini, and Mr. Meander. Take care of yourself, be safe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.